Hey everybody. So with everything happening in the news, I've been revisiting a lot of topics and I've been thinking about a lot of different things lately. And today, my journey took me to a book that I picked up a few years ago. This man, Mumia Jamal. If you have never heard of him, I please Google him, learn about his story. He has been on death row since the 80s, and his only crime was being a black man in the wrong place at the wrong time. He was shot, and he's the one in jail, and that's just because a white cop died. So please check out his story, learn about him. This book, Live from Death Row, is a collection of essays and a collection of short thoughts and musings that Mumia put together while he was on death row. And to make this even more amazing, this man writes every single book he has ever published by hand, longhand, with just the ink cartridge, the refill. Yes, just the ink cartridge from a pen. He's not allowed to have anything other than just plain paper and that ink. He's not allowed to talk to the press too often, but if you go to freemumia.com, you can learn more about his story. Anyways, as I said, he has been on death row for a very long time. And so this quote that I would like to read to you is, of course, under the context of the prison system. And with everything happening, I feel like it's just a really relevant passage. And I hope that his words give you something to think about as well. This essay is called No Law, No Rights. A federal civil rights trial in Philadelphia charging 7 former Graterford prison guards with violating the civil rights of a number of prisoners by severely beating them while they were shackled and cuffed hand and foot in November 1989. Revealed in glaring fashion how, in prisons, there is no law, there are no rights. Despite the guilty pleas and damning testimony of 5 ex-guards, that they and their colleagues maliciously beat, kicked, stomped, blackjacked, and tasered, that is, used a handheld electric shocking device, prisoners who committed no institutional offenses. A civil jury acquitted the 7 of virtually all charges in February 1993. One juror was quoted by saying that although it was proven that the prisoners were badly beaten, no conspiracy was proven by U.S. prosecutors. One prisoner who suffered from AIDS and thus had fewer internal resources with which to rebound from the horrific physical and psychological trauma he suffered in the beating, has since died. The month-long trial revealed that the guards thought 19 prisoners who were transferred from the Camp Hill prison shortly after rioters and rebels nearly leveled the central Pennsylvania facility to a pile of smoldering ashes were in part of the rioting crews that ripped it apart. In fact, the 19 were non-rioters who were only too glad to be leaving what came to be called Camp Hell, and to be coming to the state's largest and blackest prison, Graterford. Instead, they were leaving the fire only to get simmered in the frying pan, so to speak. At Graterford, whose massive, haunting walls seemed to offer some relief from the nagging and literal psychic infernos of Camp Hill, the 19 men met uniformed hatred and naked brutality as they were beaten, kicked, and terrorized by government officials sworn to protect the elusive peace in prisons. Guards who, acting on nothing but the assumption, assaulted over a dozen men on the notion that they were troublemakers. Some, those few who could navigate the treacherous straits and shoals of civil litigation, sued state officials for damages. Others bound up their wounds and blended into the wall while waiting for terms to expire, so they could be free again. Several testified in the federal prosecution. One died. But all found out how fragile the very system that stole their very freedom was, and when the state committed crimes against them, all found out that words like justice, law, civil rights, and yes, even crime, have different and elastic meanings depending on whose rights were violated, who committed what crimes against whom, and whether one works for the system or against it. For those people, almost 1 million at last count, who wear the label prisoner around their necks, there is no law, there is no justice, there are no rights. Written in February 1993.